1,800 employees let gone in a wink. That's 10% of Intuit's workforce kicked to the curb in one fell swoop. But that's not even the worst part. Get this. Over half of those laid off 1,050 people were slapped with the label underperformers. Are you kidding me? Not only did they lose their livelihoods, but they also got a little nice parting gift of a bruised ego and reputation. And let's also not forget the hundreds of people in Boise and Edmonton who showed up to work only to find that their entire office was being shut down, lock, stock and barrel. Talk about a slap in the face. But don't worry, Intuit's got it all figured out. They're just going to turn around and hire 1,800 shiny brand new employees in engineering, product, sales and marketing. Because who needs loyalty and institutional knowledge when you can just swap in some fresh new faces, right? Well, I don't know about you, but something about this whole situation just does not sit right with me. The lack of transparency, the callous labeling of underperformers, and the abrupt office closures. It's almost like Intuit forgot that these are actual human beings and not just a number on a spreadsheet. So today we're just going to talk about this whole debacle and also try to make sense of what in the world Intuit was thinking. We'll also look at the impact on the employees, the potential damage to Intuit's reputation, and the lessons other leaders can learn from this on how not to handle the layoffs. So stay tuned till the end. This is going to be a wild ride. You have tuned into the All Things Leadership podcast, and I'm your host, Abhi Sharma. And this is your playbook to navigating through the corporate journey to be and remain an effective leader that people like working with and for. So what is the Intuit layoff story? Well, the CEO, Sasan Goodarzi, sent an internal email announcing layoffs of 1,800 global employees. While he did emphasize that this was going to be a no cost-cutting measure, but rather a strategic shift towards AI and other key growth areas, something concerning did come out of it. Firstly, over half of those laid off, 1,050 employees were labeled as underperformers who failed to meet the expectation. The company is also closing down its offices in Boise and Edmonton, displacing hundreds there. As if this wasn't devastating enough, Intuit announced the upcoming hiring of 1,800 new workers in engineering, product, sales, and marketing. So on the surface, this may seem like a necessary restructuring to align the workforce with the priorities, and to be fair, it could very well be. However, my peeve is about the way it was handled, as it raises some red flags that we'll discuss in a moment, so stay with me. But right at the top of this whole discussion, I wish to particularly talk about the impact that such brutal actions leave on employees, as this is quickly becoming a commonplace in the recent couple of years. Being laid off is among the most stressful and traumatic experiences that an employee can face. It leads to feelings of shock, anger, anxiety about the future, and it's often a hit to your self-worth and identity. While Intuit is providing 16 weeks of severance and 2 months of health insurance and some other support, thank God, yet just think about the emotional toll on those 1,800 individuals and their families. But I'm particularly upset about them labeling over 1,000 people as underperformers. It feels like adding insult to injury. It makes one wonder, were the performance expectations and metrics made clear to them? Were the employees given a fair chance to improve with a performance improvement plan of sorts? Or is it all just an excuse to clean the house without taking responsibility as an employer? The lack of transparency around these performance issues is concerning. Every employee deserves clear feedback, support, and a genuine opportunity to succeed before being cast aside ruthlessly. But the interesting part that remains to be seen is, what about the ones who are still employed there? This will inevitably breed a culture of fear. Top talent may start looking elsewhere as they lose faith in companies' loyalty to its people. Let's also in the same breath talk about the other repercussions of layoffs. Firstly, it's a damage to employer brand. An organization's reputation and ability to attract the talent takes a hit after poorly handled layoffs like this. What will follow? Well, Glassdoor reviews, posts on social medias full of rant, and this negative word of mouth will likely reflect the frustration and disappointment of the impacted employees. The insensitive labeling of 1,050 workers as underperformers, as well as also shutting 2 offices down, in my opinion, makes this organization seem more concerned about the bottom line rather than the human beings who have dedicated their time and skills to the company's success. It may also raise questions about the integrity of performance reviews that they have within and whether they were even used fairly to begin with. In today's times, the top talent looks for employers who demonstrate strong values, psychological safety, and investment in their people. With what Intuit has done, time will only tell how great of a brand it continues to remain. Alright, now for the crucial part. What leaders can learn from this? This is not the first layoff, nor will it be the last. We all have seen far too many cases like these, if not worse, to not learn a lesson from them. Here are some key lessons that I think all leaders should learn from this. Number one is to upskill and redeploy where feasible. So let me take a minute to explain this. What I mean by that is, before resorting to layoffs, consider if current employees could be retained for new roles and priorities. Internal mobility is more cost-effective than layoffs and rehiring, full stop. But if layoffs are truly unavoidable and you must do it, do the bare minimum and treat people with dignity and respect that they deserve. Handle them with utmost care, sensitivity, and above all, humanity. Avoid condescending language like underperformers that demeans people on their way out. Don't kill them and mutilate the body then. The next thing I think is to be transparent about the why of it. Help employees understand the sound business reasons for the decision and emphatically communicate, this is very important, that it is not in any way a reflection of their individual worth. At least acknowledge their contributions that they've made to your organization so far. And for that, I think they deserve a little bit of respect. One other lesson that leaders must learn from this is whenever there's a layoff situation that the company is talking about, try and give advance notice to your people when possible. Sudden layoffs should be the last resort. Giving even a few weeks of notice would allow people to process the decision, the change it is going to bring about. They could start making some alternate plans and maybe feel a little less blindsided. After all, you won't want to burn bridges. Remember, some of them can meet you at some other juncture of your career as your bosses. One more key lesson is to provide generous support when you can, which thankfully in Intuit's case, there was somebody in their sane mind who ensured that there was a support given to these employees, which I told you earlier was the severance package and some extended medical insurance, etc. So leaders and decision makers must always provide such support at the time of layoffs, so they have a few weeks of cushion. I'd go to the extent of saying even go provide them career counseling if that's possible. And along with that, also open themselves, the employers that is, to provide recommendations and references to these outgoing employees. These are just a few ways to show that gesture and cushion the blow for the outgoing people. And you are likely going to set them up for success in their future job search. Now, for the ones who have survived this layoff, leaders can rest assured that the survivors of this layoff are going to be dealing with shock, uncertainty, and imminent heavier workloads. So what must you do as a leader here? Well, it's simple. Provide frequent, transparent communication. That's your only bet in the short run, because their mental health and well-being is paramount. If you want to make half an attempt to resurrect the trust and morale, you must make sure that the communication keeps on going. Lastly, but definitely not the least, in fact, most crucial, is to reflect on the company culture. Examine whether your performance management systems are set up in a fair, clear, and consistent manner. Take it back to the drawing board if need be. Also, foster an environment of psychological safety so people feel secure taking risks and being vulnerable. The bottom line is to put people first. I keep saying this all the time. Lead with empathy, transparency, and generosity. Your employees are human beings, not just resources to be optimized. Now, for the ones who are laid off, whether Intuit or elsewhere, because this seems to be a commonplace these days, while it is a super tough emotion to deal with, anything that I'm going to say, or however I say it, it could just very easily be written off thinking it is easier said than done. Yet, hear me out. It's likely that you will learn a thing or two from this. First and foremost, feel your feelings. It's normal to experience a range of emotions from sadness to anger. Acknowledge them without judgment. Consider journaling if that's your thing. Go out, take a therapy if that helps you. Talk to your well-wishers and your corporate gurus or mentor if you have one, and so on. The idea is to prioritize self-care at this rather stressful time. Try to not lose sleep, no pun intended. Don't neglect eating healthy, working out, etc. The basic stuff. But whatever you do, avoid going overboard with intoxication of any sort. Because these are the unhealthiest coping mechanisms and will always, mark my words, throw you from fire to furnace. Which means that you are just going to end up in a worse situation. The next is to think like this as a good time to build social connection with those who you value. Also try to tap into your network, both online and otherwise. Reach out to former colleagues, mentors, friends, family. Let them know that you are looking for opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that. Their connections, the advice, the references may open doors for you. Speaking of which, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll put the details in the description of this episode, and I'm happy to help however I can. Speaking of LinkedIn, just rework on your resume and LinkedIn profile itself to reflect the most marketable skills you have. If you don't have some of these skills that are in demand within your industry, well, use this downtime to learn those skills, and that can help you land your next job. Many online courses are free or low cost. And remember, you do not always need those flashy, exorbitant certifications, but go for them if you think you can afford them. Lastly, try to have some compassion for yourself. This is the most underestimated thing. Layoffs can feel like a personal failure, but I can assure you they're not. Think like this. What advice would you give to your best friend if they were laid off? Well, extend yourself the same grace and understanding you'd offer them. Besides, your real worth is never defined by your employment alone. Generally speaking, the market in most industries, barring a handful, is quite challenging. But it's not a life sentence. That's how I would like you to think. With resilience, ingenuity, and support, you will find your way to the next chapter in your professional journey. Well, this podcast is fairly new, and I'm covering leadership workplace topics that are either topical or relevant to leaders or both. Let me know if you're liking these. How? Well, firstly, subscribe and follow this YouTube channel or LinkedIn page or podcast page, whichever way you're listening to this. And comment section is always open, so go fill that with your thoughts on layoffs. Have you ever been laid off or know someone who has been? What's the best way to cope with layoff according to you? I'd love to know all your stories and suggestions. Lastly, would you please share this or repost this on your social media platforms so that this can reach the maximum audience that would benefit from this value? Alright, thank you so much for joining me today. Take it easy and remember to always strive to be the learner.